All right, let's get back to Zohran Mamdani, Chris Hayes.
Clear that Zohran Mamdani would be the Democratic nominee for mayor in New York City. The response from Republicans has been about as unhinged as you might expect. Donald Trump is practically frothing at the mouth, threatening to arrest Mamdani, who, of course, has not broken any laws. There's talk on the right that they're going to, denaturalize him and deport him. At least one Republican congressman has called for the 33-year-old state assemblyman, a naturalized U.S. citizen, to be deported. And it hasn't just been that. Even some establishment Democrats have refused to back their party's choice or said really vile things about him, despite the overwhelming enthusiasm for his candidacy here in New York. But if there's one thing Mamdani has demonstrated over the course of this campaign so far, is he's pretty good at just kind of sticking to his principles and message discipline. He doesn't bow down in the face of pressure, but then he keeps pivoting back to the center of what he campaigned on, which is affordability.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie. I'm holding on to Zohran like he's the last bit of weed I got, you know? Like I'm like a crackhead and I run out of all the crack cocaine, and this is like the little bit of baking soda lace crack I got that I found under the crevice of the kitchen, okay? And I'm smoking it. I'm like, I need it. I need a hit. Every time like horrible shit is happening, I just go back to Zohran for a second to be like, well, see, there's this. Just one last hit, you know what I mean? That's cool. Just a little bit of hopium in these trying times. I think this is why people aren't used to you doing IRL things, having fun outside with people. We're all used to being depressed and unwell together. Yeah. Let's take a hit of Mamdani right now, okay? That good Mamdani Kush.
And that is exactly what a lot of Democrats, again, across the ideological spectrum, have been both talking about and are looking for right now. Lydia Polgreen had a good piece in the New York Times this week, writing, quote, Mamdani's win is a rebuke of the strategy such as it is that many leading Democrats have advocated in the face of Trump's shock and awe attempt to remake the presidency and the country in his dark image, haplessly veering between not getting distracted by Trump's lawless actions and signaling their moderation in the face.
Yeah, the New York Times is also doing everything in its power right now to just put out that last bit of hope that people have in their hearts, which is crazy.
Face of Trumpian antics as their base marches in the streets, Democrats are missing the poor political reality of our time. Emma Vigeland co-hosts the Majority Report with my buddy Sam Cedar. Faz Shakir is a senior advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders and the executive director of More Perfect Union, and they join me now. Emma, I want to start with the response to Mamdani and what you make of it. In some ways, he's sort of created in a lab to make Republican and conservative politicians absolutely lose their mind, and they have not disappointed. But there's also been broadly a lot of pretty insane reactions.
Okay.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, just think about this for a second. The fact that so many people see Zohran Mamdani, a man who is born in Uganda and of Indian heritage, and they immediately go to anti-Semitism or Hamas. What else can you call that? And as you just said, Chris, this is not just Republicans. Republicans, of course, we expect that. So many of the arguments that I'm hearing against Mamdani now, I feel like I could have heard them against Obama in 2008 when he won the nomination, where it's just this constant stream of racist attacks. And unfortunately, though, we saw from politicians like Kirsten Gillibrand and others some really unfortunate Islamophobic racism directed at Mamdani. And it's just incredible to me to see how, despite the fact that Democratic voters, now CNN showed this the other day, that they sympathize with Palestinians by more than 43 points at this point, that...
Wait, is she still at her honeymoon? Or is she back from her honeymoon? Because is she back? That's crazy. She's tuning in, doing work on the honeymoon.
You still see this reflexive reaction because of his faith from members of this of the party here, trying to shut him down and trying to negate his message, especially when Democrats are talking about, oh gosh, we have to bring young people and young men back into the fold. The youth vote in this race was absolutely overwhelming. Pollsters, I think, estimated prior to the race that 18 to 44-year-olds would be around 30% of the electorate. They were nearly half. So if we want to bring young people back into the fold, this tactic of trying to silence him or not endorse him, it's the absolute wrong way to go.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, I want to be clear here about the there's sort of two things going on with him. I mean, there's this really Islamophobic and disgusting sort of racist attacks as othering. His politics on the question of Israel and Palestine, he co-founded Students for Justice in Palestine. He was an advocate for boycott, divestment, sanctions. Like, his politics on that are politics that a lot of people in the Democratic Party do not share and oppose on the merits. I just want to make the distinction. Like, some people just don't like what he says about the issue because they have different views. One of the things that you end up having to do, Faz, in Democratic coalitional politics, which I think is one of the things I think he's done very well, is that's kind of what happens in coalitional politics. Like, you are going to have views that people don't like, and you're going to.
Yeah, except who is this for? Like, the Democrats have a different view on genocide. It's true. They're monsters on that. But the problem is the Democrat Party view, the party line amongst the politicians is directly at odds with the people's position, with the overwhelming majority of Democratic Party voters. So it bears repeating. You must ask this question over and over again. Who is this for then? If you are a representative, if you are a public servant, if you are supposed to represent the interests of your constituencies, and your constituency is diametrically opposed to your output on this issue, who are you representing actually?
Have to figure out how to talk to people about it, not just sort of like abandon those views and double back because that looks totally inauthentic, but also focus on the things where you do have the kind of maximal amount of power and consent.
Yeah, like, I don't think the Democratic Party leadership is quite calibrated to the 105-point divide between the GOP voters and Dem voters. From what you know about the situation in the Middle East, do your sympathies lie more with the Israelis or more with the Palestinians? Republicans say 64% lie with the Israelis. Democrats say 60% lie with the Palestinians. It's not even a question. Like, if you are a Democrat, it's over. Your voters do not fuck with Israel at all. Okay? Your voters are on the fuck Israel train. But the party, if you were to look at just the party alone, you would think that there is a 60% pro-Israel sentiment amongst the base. You would think that the overwhelming majority of Democratic voters' sympathy lies with the Israelis, when it's the exact opposite.
And I think, my criticism of a current modern Democratic Party is it's lacking in grassroots-ism. And here comes Zohran building from a grassroots coalition, a constituency of people who care deeply about not only this issue, a whole set of issues around affordability. And I would hope that more Democrats would heed it and say, hey, maybe there's something to learn from this. Maybe even, on a whole set of issues, is there something that we could sit down and talk to him about and gather his inputs on rather than.
Yeah, they leaned on Ossoff after his first vote to block weapons to Israel before flipping on the second vote to approve weapons. And it's really interesting because John Ossoff is Jewish. Jewish Georgia leaders say Ossoff is making amends, but still has more work to do. They literally went in. They made the boss call. John Ossoff is Jewish, and it was like, I don't think we should be giving weapons to Israel. This is up. And they literally made a boss call and made him pack that up real quick. Yeah, he voted with Bernie Sanders to block aid to Israel. All right, look at the sinister framework here at play. Like, Georgia Jews only care about giving weapons to Israel. Excuse me. Like, is that even the case? Also, you don't just represent the Jewish population of Georgia anyway, even if that was the case. You represent the entire base of support from Georgia, and it's not, especially on the Democratic side, is not even a question. It's not even a question. It's like, this is not, you are going against the wishes of your voters at that point.
To stiff arm him and push this entire coalition away, which of course is why a lot of the coalition that Zohran has won has felt pushed out of the Democratic Party. He brought people back in.
Yeah, I remember this. I remember this psychotic letter. Atlanta letter to Senators Ossoff and Warnock on their vote to block arms sales to Israel. They were like, you better not do that. Bro, they hit like insane notes. It's like, look at this. Jewish Fertility Foundation, Jewish kids groups demands that John Ossoff send weapons to the apartheid state. It's like, bro, do you have no shame at all? Like, this right here is a perfect demonstration of what I'm talking about. All these advocacy groups and they're all operating with one goal in mind. Like, they don't give a about whatever their primary focus is supposed to be. Like, what do you mean Jewish kids groups and Jewish Home Life and Jewish Fertility Foundation signed off on a letter that said you must give more weapons to Israel? Synagogues, houses of worship being like, no, you don't understand. This is like the most important thing for us. Jewish kids groups. Yeah, it's in the name. Our job is to, kill Palestinian kids. Is that what it is? Is that what the primary focus is for Jewish kids groups?
Who had been not voting in 2024. So, it's frustrating, but this is part of a billionaire agenda. To be clear, you have Bill Ackman, you got Barry Diller, you got a whole bunch of people, Mayor Bloomberg, who all are dumping money in. And so you'll see these smear attacks. You'll see them from Trump because they want Eric Adams. They want an indicted mayor of New York City to return. And so you're going to have distraction, the politics of distraction for sure.
Well, but there's something he does that I think reminds me of what Bernie Sanders, I think, has done quite effectively. I mean, I should note, Waleed Shahid published this great analysis we've had on the show of like mainstream media coverage of Mamdani, which has been like overwhelmingly about Israel and Palestine and Gaza, even though that was not at all the focus of his campaign at all. And in fact, like he would get asked it by the media, but he was always talking about affordability. And Emma, one of the things I think he does well that reminds me of Sanders is he gets this Venn diagram of stuff that he believes in, that's progressive policy, and that sound good to a lot of people, a rent freeze. And he'll talk about other stuff, and he doesn't run away from his values on that sort of stuff. But like Bernie Sanders, who I have interviewed literally hundreds of times, he will turn you back to those talking points about the stuff he wants to focus on over and over and over again, where he feels most confident he's got the biggest audience.
Absolutely. And Faz knows this, working for the OG Sanders here. But like, this is how you beat billionaires and you combat a campaign finance system that is immensely corrupt. Now in New York City, we have matching funds, and that's a huge, I think, model for the rest of the country as to how to combat this influx of corporate money that is now completely dominating the Republican Party. But you have, as Faz just said, Bill Ackman, DoorDash, Mike Bloomberg, all just pouring in endless money into the Fix the City super PAC because basically Citizens United since 2010 said we're going to merge corporate personhood and we're going to make it so that corporations can have unabridged speech because speech equals money, like Buckley V. Vallejo said. And this has created this toxic storm that has brought us to this moment of oligarchy. And it's just incredible to me that you can have Andrew Cuomo, who has like the litany of just absolute scandals behind him, but who also on this issue of Israel-Palestine recently volunteered his services for Benjamin Netanyahu as his lawyer on ICC war crimes charges in late 2024. When Israel had already been accused of committing genocide by countless credible scholars and by Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International. So you have a guy who's lapping up Trump donor money, billionaire money, and offering to defend a man who is slaughtering hundreds of innocent people a day. And national Democrats are flummoxed that primary voters weren't into this kind of thing, specifically because I do think there is another racism here or bigotry that's not being talked about, which is the assumption that Jewish voters are going to just be led by this one particular issue. New York City has one of the largest Jewish populations in the world. And I found a lot of the rhetoric about what they thought, what a lot of national pundits thought Jewish voters would do in this race to be pretty anti-Semitic. Turns out Jewish New Yorkers are like everybody else. We're voting, and it's the economy, stupid, as Carville would say, right? These are kitchen table issues.
Yeah, this is the thing about when you get to the number, there's a million Jewish folks in New York City, roughly. It's a city of 8 million people. It's a thing, Faz, that like you always have to come back to with every group. And this is a thing that we all fall prey to, I think, in political analysis. Like when you're talking about a million of anyone, like people got a lot of different views inside that million.
Yeah. Also, Jews voted 75% for the Democratic Party this last election cycle, and Israel was in the 9th out of the top 11 concerns. It ranked as 9th priority. So clearly there's some other reasons, regardless of the fact that America is uniparty on Israel and foreign policy. Clearly, Jewish voters are not prioritizing Israel as a primary concern. This doesn't mean that there aren't Jews who do think Israel is their primary concern. I'm sure there are plenty of them that vote consistently for the Republican Party. Okay? Gabish?
Million. Like, that's a lot of people, and there's a kind of shortcutting that ends up happening a lot, particularly in Democratic politics, because it's such a diverse coalition.
And to try to address the coalitional politics you were talking about earlier, to bring people together on a common set of agenda. This is why Bernie Sanders and myself go back to the things that we know that huge amounts of Jewish Americans, Muslim Americans, Asian Americans, you name them, are going to feel, hey, can I talk to you about the issues around busing? Can I talk to you around the issues of housing? If I talk to you about the issues of childcare, how much will that resonate with you? They'll start to hear. And we are frogs boiling in water in the sense that the politics all around us has become this kind of sense of elitism-driven politics. Here in the Senate, not only do you have this kind of bill that you've been talking about all day, and then you got crypto. How do these things get moved to the top of the agenda? And here you have, if you were to describe the AOC politics, the Bernie politics, the Mamdani politics, is to say you're on behalf of people. What would it look like if you said, hey, you know, the number one agenda item is we're going to talk about housing costs? It's so to many people, it's like crazy that it's not on the agenda anywhere. Why? Because we don't have a working class politics that drives the agenda. People know that.